Revealed, amazing waitress with a broken hand surprises undercover boss with her incredible story. The smell of brewed coffee mingled with the aroma of freshly baked pies as Sarah deftly maneuvered through the cozy diner, her left hand encased in a splint. The bright neon lights flickered above the checkered tablecloths, casting a warmth that belied her inner turmoil. Each day was a balancing act, taking care of her two young children, nursing her ailing mother, and now, managing a broken hand that throbbed with each movement. But she plastered on her brightest smile, the essence of her resilience echoing in every word she spoke. Yet beneath the surface, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. What if this injury was the tipping point? What if she couldn't keep her family afloat? With every cup of coffee she poured, her thoughts spiraled deeper. Was she merely surviving? A waitress in a diner filled with dreams deferred, or a mom trying to provide more? When the undercover boss walked in, disguised as a dishwasher looking for escape, he saw more than just a hard-working employee. He saw a woman whose spirit nearly outshined the diner itself. But would he see the cracks beneath her cheerful exterior? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days dragged on, management's relentless focus on profits over people began to gnaw at her insides. New suggestions rolled in like storms, threatening benefits and shifts paired with increased cuts. What kind of place was this, where loyalty didn't pay? Sarah's mind raced at each proposal, feeling as if she were losing her grip not just on her job but on her own dignity. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the other waitstaff who struggled alongside her. Faced with the creeping dread of potential layoffs, she felt an ache that no splint could heal. The diner wasn't just a job, it was a slice of home for each of them. Her resolve simmered into a quiet rebellion. Could she speak up and advocate for her coworkers? Would they dismiss her ideas, rolling their eyes as if she were revealing her broken hand in a room of bulls? The tension mounted within her, a pulsating fear tinged with a desperate hope that she could ignite change. What if they tore apart the very foundation that had weathered storms and filled empty bellies? But could she risk all she had left? In a moment of raw anxiety, Sarah's heart raced as she struggled to balance her internal chaos with the external demands of her job. The lights of the diner flickered, swallowed by shadows of doubt. Would the undercover boss discern her struggle and offer her a way out, or would he, too, uphold the same merciless system? With each passing shift, the stakes grew higher, the threshold of betrayal creeping ever closer. Could she find the courage to forge a path through the suffocating blanket of downtrodden norms? The undeniable truth loomed ahead. Sarah's dreams hung perilously at the edge, the diner's fate flipping between light and risk in the hands of those who wielded power far too lightly. Would her courage be enough to withstand the system threatening to suffocate her dreams, or would her voice slip into an echo of what once was? The time was ticking, and with each shift, both hope and fear intermingled within her as the weight of change surged like the tide, ready to crash over her life. Daybreak peeked through the diner windows, casting a soft glow on the checkered floors where Sarah stood, her heart pounding with determination. Today felt different. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, but rather than a cacophony of chaos, they hummed with an electric potential. She had spent sleepless nights contemplating her next steps, balancing the weight of her responsibilities against the burden of her doubts. Now, there was a flicker of clarity cutting through the veil of uncertainty. A few days earlier, Sarah had overheard snippets of conversation among the management. They laughed over coffee, making light of the latest proposals that would further compromise the staff's goodwill. The indignation sparked within her like a match to kindling. She was tired of swallowing her frustration, abiding by archaic systems that valued profit over people. The realization that she wasn't alone in her struggle ignited her spirit. Other waitstaff had shared their own quiet frustrations as well. It was time to rally against the tide, to voice what had long been kept silent. As she filled a customer's coffee cup, she stole a glance at the back of the diner where the undercover boss, in his disguise, continued to blend into the greasy landscape of the kitchen. He stepped aside, cautiously avoiding the clamor of clattering dishes and bustling servers. Did he see her, truly see her? The weight of her injury seemed lighter at that moment, replaced by the gravity of her resolve. She summoned the courage to approach him and share her vision for a better working environment for them all. "Excuse me, can we talk?" she began, her voice trembling slightly as she caught his surprised gaze. For a brief second, she hesitated, almost turning back to the safety of her routine. But the urgency within her swelled. This is what she had to do. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued rather than offended. "What's on your mind?" Sarah took a breath, steadying herself. "I've been thinking about the changes management is proposing. I know how hard we all work here, and I believe if we could collaborate, we could present a united front for our needs. It's not just me anymore, it's about everyone." The boss leaned in, nodding subtly, encouraging her to continue. It was as if a new door had opened within her, her ideas bubbling to the surface. She spoke fervently about their needs for better communication with management, fairer scheduling, and how reductions in benefits would demoralize the entire staff. Her voice grew stronger with every word, the threads of hope woven into her impassioned plea. "I know I'm just a waitress with a broken hand, but I care about this place and the people in it," she confessed, feeling the heat of vulnerability edge through her usual bravado. He listened intently as Sarah articulated thoughts she had kept locked away for far too long. For every critique she raised, she also offered a solution, revealing a burgeoning talent for leadership she hadn't recognized before. In that moment, she connected not just with the boss but also with her own burgeoning self-worth. After she finished, silence hung in the air like a thick fog. Sarah's heart raced. Had she said too much? Would she be dismissed as just another angry employee? The truth was, she hadn't only confronted the undercover boss, she had confronted herself. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was steady. "I appreciate your confidence, Sarah. I think we might just be able to work together to ensure your voices are heard." As a spark of camaraderie flickered between them, the world outside the diner continued its frenetic dance. But within those walls, seeds of change began to take root. Could she really be the catalyst for a brighter future, or was this just the calm before a storm? With her heart still beating wildly in her chest, Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that her journey had only just begun. The stakes were rising, and she needed to prepare for the inevitable confrontation ahead. What would it take to ensure her vision wasn't crushed beneath the machinery of indifference? The answer clawed at her mind as she returned to her station. Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, and Sarah was ready to rise to meet them head-on. The morning shift was hectic, a chaotic symphony of clinking silverware and the sizzling of bacon on the griddle. Sarah poured coffee with a practiced grace, but her mind was elsewhere. The brief connection with the boss lingered in her thoughts, breaking through the clamor of orders and complaints. She felt emboldened, but the palpable tension of what lay ahead weighed on her. Her co-workers had noticed her newfound energy. They whispered amongst themselves, curiosity flickering in their eyes as the usual monotony of their workday gave way to a sliver of hope. Sarah caught the gaze of Mia, a fellow waitress with dreams of culinary school, and saw her lingering questions. Would she share what had transpired with the boss? Or would she retreat back into silence, afraid of the repercussions? As she busied herself with her tasks, pieces of strategy fell into place in her mind. She needed to devise a plan, a way to unify the staff around a common goal without putting herself in a vulnerable position. But even as she began to work through her thoughts, shadows of doubt whispered insidiously in the corners of her mind. What if her efforts led to backlash? What if she not only failed but amplified the anger among the others? At noon, a deep sigh of collective exasperation filled the air as manager Dave stepped onto the diner floor. He gathered the staff for a hastily called meeting. The familiar face of authority sparked a wave of tension in Sarah. Would this be the moment when her courage would falter? As the staff settled, the manager launched into a conversation about escalating pressures from upper management. It was the same old tale: the impending cuts, a reduction in hours, and an insidious hint about staff layoffs. Sarah's heart raced as she interpreted the frustration bubbling among her peers. Each disgruntled murmur and rolled eye signaled a shared discontent. This was it. If she were going to make an impact, it had to be now. The whispers of resolve she had felt earlier morphed into a visceral yearning to act, but she needed to tread carefully. Sarah raised her hand, her voice trembling at first as eyes turned to her. We've heard about these cuts, and with everything we've worked for, it doesn't seem fair. She watched as a flicker of surprise mingled with intrigue crossed Dave's face. This wasn't how silence was supposed to work. It was the spark, not the rejection, she had anticipated. She pressed on, bolstered by the collective anxiety she sensed around her. What if we outlined the impact this would have on us as individuals? It might be worth considering how these decisions affect morale and productivity. Murmurs of agreement surged. Encouraged by the growing momentum, she continued, maybe we could draft a letter, something to show the management how this pressure affects us and propose alternatives that keep the goodwill flowing. With each sentence, she felt stronger, her mind shaping the narrative of change she envisioned. As she spoke, it became clear that her words had ignited something deeper. Staff members rallied around, sharing their stories, personal anecdotes of stretched finances, dreams deferred, and families dependent on their income. Each testimony threaded into a fabric of shared struggle, amplifying Sarah's own emphasis on unity and respect. Dave's initial skepticism shifted as he absorbed the overwhelming honesty of the employees. I never intended for it to feel this way, he finally conceded, the lines of tension softening on his brow. Let us discuss it further. Perhaps, for the first time, Sarah realized that her efforts were striking a chord, not only with management but also within her. She had unearthed a strength she never knew was there, a potential leader awakening within the shell of her self-doubt. But as the meeting concluded on a flicker of hope instead of despair, Sarah couldn't shake a growing concern. Changes were afoot, but would they be enough? And what if management pushed back hard against their earnest plea? That uncertainty loomed large, ushering in new challenges on the horizon. The path ahead had transformed from a muted uncertainty into a vast, uncharted territory. What would be demanded of her next? The battle was just beginning, and she needed to prepare. Sarah entered the diner the next day, her heart thudding in rhythm with the clatter of plates and the buzz of conversation. She had barely slept, her mind tangled with strategies and anxieties. Though optimism lingered from the previous day's meeting, doubt crept in like a cold mist. What if her voice was just a fleeting echo? She could almost hear the rhythms of discontent slowly returning to the diner, a reminder of the fragility of hope. As she poured coffee for the early patrons, she caught glimpses of her coworkers. Mia was shuffling papers, perhaps a draft of that letter they had discussed. Sarah's resolve tightened, she had to reinforce the budding camaraderie before it faltered. This was her moment to not only lead but also to nurture. Hey, Mia, Sarah said, sliding into the booth beside her. How's the letter coming along? Mia looked up, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. It's good. But I'm worried. What if they just ignore it? Like they always do? Then we make sure they can't, Sarah replied, her tone firmer than she felt. We can present it at the next meeting. If we're united, we are harder to overlook. A hesitant smile crossed Mia's lips. You really think we can change something? I have to believe it, Sarah insisted, the determination in her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. She found strength in that moment, but it quickly surged against the very doubts that had held her back before. Perhaps her self-doubt was just another story she needed to rewrite. The day ebbed and flowed, but the tension was palpable. Every order called and every dish served was layered with an unspoken weight. The urgency of their message hung heavily in the air. Sarah noticed Mia and a few others whispering, glancing furtively at the manager who was cramming his desk with paperwork. Anxiety swelled in her chest. It was a reminder that they were on the precipice of action, yet still entangled in fear. As the lunch rush began, Manager Dave stepped back onto the floor, a somber expression shadowing his features. Sarah's stomach churned. Would he dismiss their letter? Or worse, retaliate against anyone who dared challenge the status quo? Listen up, everyone, Dave called out, I need your attention for a moment. The chatter faded, tension fracturing the diner atmosphere as he addressed them. I've talked to the higher-ups about the concerns you raised. They agreed to meet with a representative from our team to discuss these cuts, but they need to see it in writing. A palpable sigh of relief coursed through the staff, but Sarah's thoughts spiraled. Who would represent them? Who would have the clout to ensure their voices were heard? Immediately, her instincts kicked in. It should be us together, she suggested, raising her voice above the crowd. We all have a stake in this. Everyone deserves a say. Yeah. Someone shouted from the back, emboldening others to nod in agreement. The electricity of unity thrummed through them, prompting Sarah to step forward. Let us present our stories together. We have to show them the faces behind the cuts, she urged. This is not just about numbers, it's about our lives. The spark in their eyes ignited a fire inside her. Did she truly believe in the movement they were starting? It wasn't just about unity, it was about being visible in a world that often rendered them invisible, but beyond the buoyancy of the moment lingered the specter of unpreparedness. What if their words didn't resonate? What if the meeting turned hostile? Anxiety pulsed through her veins like a drumbeat, driving her to channel it into clarity. Can we come together on this? She asked, her voice steadying as she reached out for a collective commitment. One by one, heads nodded, expressions hardening into a determined resolve. Later that evening, gathered in a small booth, they penned their letter with unwavering focus. Each line carried the weight of personal stories mingled with shared commitments. They were no longer just waitstaff, they were advocates, braving the tide of uncertainty as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation, but lurking in the back of Sarah's mind was a gnawing fear she couldn't shake off. What if they failed? What if the repercussions were worse than they could fathom? As she wrote, she glanced out the window at the encroaching darkness. She had taken this leap, but what lay ahead could very well be a tempest she hadn't prepared for. Tomorrow would bring the meeting with management. Would they stand firm, or would they crumble under the weight of their own fears? Doubt clawed at her insides, but she had no choice now. The moment was coming, and there would be no turning back. The truth was laid bare before her. Sarah had stepped into the light, but her resolve would truly be tested when she had to face the storm head-on. The morning after their collaborative effort, Sarah arrived at the diner, the damp chill of early dawn settling like a heavy blanket over her. Each step felt weighted, a physical manifestation of the internal turmoil brewing within her. Today was not just another day at work, it was a pivotal moment. The letter, their stories, stood between them and an uncertain future. She moved through the din of the early morning shift, offering coffee and toast while battling the barrage of what-ifs. Gnawing at her resolve. The laughter and banter of her co-workers felt distant, muted under the onslaught of her racing thoughts. Sarah wrestled with her emotions, questioning whether she had done enough to prepare herself and her colleagues. Had they adequately articulated their pain, their needs? The ensemble of voices in her mind only amplified the stakes. Sarah, a familiar voice broke through her reverie. It was Mia. You okay? Just getting butterflies in my stomach, Sarah admitted, summoning a smile. But we'll be alright. We've got this. Mia looked uncertain, her eyes darting around the bustling diner. I hope so. I can't stop thinking about how they might react. I know, Sarah replied, her own uncertainty bubbling just beneath the surface. They had come this far, there was no turning back. She needed her own feelings of fortitude to ignite a flame in Mia and the others. Remember why we're doing this. It's about all of us. They can't ignore us if we're united in our stories. The moments ticked away, each one stretching painfully as the clock moved toward their scheduled meeting with management. As breakfast gave way to a steady stream of lunch customers, Sarah felt moments of camaraderie slip through her fingers like grains of sand. Suddenly, their frantic work routine was interrupted. Manager Dave motioned for Sarah and Mia to join him in the back. The air thickened, the excitement swirling with anxious dread as Sarah turned to Mia. "Just breathe. We can do this." When they entered the cramped back office, the atmosphere was stifling. Flanked by supervisors, Dave placed the letter on his desk. "This is it," he said, the weight of his tone thick. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Mia glanced at Sarah, who nodded resolutely. "We're ready," she stated firmly, feeling the slight tremor in her voice. Was this the point of no return? "All right," Dave said cautiously, sliding the document toward them. "We just need to make it clear that you three will be representing everyone's interests. Speak from your hearts." As Sarah lifted the letter, she noticed her hands trembling. Would her voice waver under the pressure? Deep breaths and a few affirmations, "You can do this, your words matter," echoed in her mind, but the uncertainties tangled together, a discordant symphony. When called into the conference room, Sarah found herself faced with a table lined with management, their serious expression strikingly contrasting her own determined resolve. The stark fluorescent lights flickered above, casting an unyielding glare on what felt like one of the most important moments of her life. A profound silence filled the room, everyone waiting, and Sarah was acutely aware of her pounding heart. She exchanged a glance with Mia and silently urged her to start. But a strange wave of empowerment swept over her. This was her story to tell, her time to shine. Clearing her throat, she stepped forward. "Thank you for meeting with us," she began, the words spilling out more confidently than she anticipated. "We come to you today not just as staff but as people. Each of us has a story that speaks to how changes impact lives." Sarah spoke passionately, her voice carrying the weight of her co-workers' fears, hopes, and dreams. As she detailed the struggles behind the statistics and figures so often highlighted in management meetings, she felt as if the room grew smaller, her focus narrowing on the faces that needed to hear her words. But doubt gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. Would it mean anything? Would they listen? The clock ticked on as she continued, gradually shifting her anxiety into a powerful realization that the fear had transformed. This was her moment of truth. Now or never. As Sarah reached the climax of her statement, the door opened, and a newcomer slipped into the room. Heads turned, surprise painted across the faces of management. What was about to transpire would not only impact their current circumstance but everything morphing ahead. The unexpected appearance sent a jolt through Sarah. Who could this mysterious figure be, and what implications did their arrival hold for the meeting and for her future? The figure that entered the conference room was tall and cloaked in an air of authority. Clad in a polished suit that contrasted sharply with the diner uniforms, the newcomer's presence disrupted the already charged atmosphere. Sarah's heart raced, emotions spiraling from confusion to a surge of determination. This was no ordinary interruption. This was her opportunity to pivot the trajectory of their meeting. "Excuse me," he interjected, his voice rich and confident. "I'm Alex. I've been following the developments around here and wanted to be part of the conversation." "Please continue, Sarah." His unexpected interjection commanded immediate attention. Sarah's mind momentarily blanked. She had rehearsed for this moment, but now the gravity of a potential higher authority listening made her fight-or-flight instinct surge. Thank you," she stammered, feeling the eyes of both management and her colleagues on her. What did this man want? What was at stake in his presence? "Please, speak freely," Alex encouraged, nodding to her, his demeanor radiating an unexpected warmth. It felt both reassuring and unnerving. As if tethered again to her purpose, she took a deep breath, steeling herself to resume where she had left off. Now, she needed to convey her message with even more fervor. As she projected her voice, recounting tales of fatigue, underappreciation, and the yearning for change, she could sense Alex leaning forward, absorbing her every word. This was not just a presentation, this was a moment for her to embody her colleagues' struggles, to shine a light upon them. She recalled their late-night discussions, their laughter tinged with sorrow, and their hopes clinging to whispers of better days. Every shift represents more than just another day of work, she declared, it embodies our lives, our families, our dreams. When we are overlooked, it isn't just a financial issue, it strikes at the very heart of who we are. With every utterance, the ominous weight of her earlier doubts began to lift. Alex's supportive gaze bolstered her resolve, yet she knew the risk lingered in the air. Was management even willing to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding? Was her heartfelt plea resonating, or would it dissipate like smoke? The tension in the room thickened, but Sarah pushed through, unyielding. Finally, she finished her speech and paused, searching the expressions of management, hoping for empathy or at least a flicker of acknowledgement. Yet, the silence that ensued was palpable, each second stretching endlessly. She turned her attention to Alex, who was now surveying the awkward tableau with a keen expression, as if weighing his words. "Thank you, Sarah. It takes courage to voice such honest perspectives," he said finally, nodding appreciatively. The sudden shift in atmosphere felt electric. Perhaps this man could be the catalyst for change. Management exchanged disconcerted glances, the tension thickening. Sarah could feel the stakes rising exponentially. This wasn't just about speaking out anymore, this was a matter of survival for her teammates, herself, and perhaps even the diner's future. She desperately searched for a way to leverage the newfound attention, to turn this moment into something transformative. "I want to emphasize," Alex continued, his gaze still fixed on Sarah, "that the team behind you is crucial. We need to understand what's at hand, how the decisions made here affect lives." His words opened a door, but would management dare to walk through it? Sarah's heart raced as she studied the room, wondering if she had finally turned the tide. Intrigued by the unfolding drama, her mind raced. Where would this lead? What would the fallout be? And what was Alex's true role in all of this? In that charged silence, possibilities and uncertainties intertwined, waiting to shape the next chapters of their collective story. The moment felt heavy, pregnant with potential and peril, leaving Sarah on a precipice, just as precarious as the one she had faced that morning. As everyone held their breath and the air crackled with anticipation, Sarah recognized a crucial truth: the outcome rested not only on her shoulders, they were in this together. She just had to find the courage to take the leap into the unknown. The tension in the room was suffocating as Sarah peered across the table, searching for signs of movement among the management team. Their eyes were narrow, expressions unreadable, as if she had just challenged a deeply rooted belief. Alex was now a silent sentinel, observing the dynamics with a thoughtful frown, but Sarah's attention was focused solely on the flickers of anxiety and uncertainty she knew were hidden beneath her own boldness. "How do we even begin to address what has been said?" one of the managers finally said, breaking the silence. His voice trembled slightly, an indication that her words had rattled him, maybe even awakened something. A ripple of conversation ensued among the higher-ups, their murmurs weaving through the heavy atmosphere like an impending storm. Sarah felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, a mixture of fear and fierce resolve. In this moment, she was acutely aware of the transformation unfolding within her. She was no longer the quiet observer of her circumstances, but an active participant, an advocate for her colleagues. "While you discuss that," Sarah interjected, her voice firmer than before, "I want to clarify that this isn't just about better pay or improved working conditions. It's about respect and recognition. It's about being seen." The words emerged with a resilience she didn't know resided within her, striking the walls of corporate indifference like a hammer. Alex nodded appreciatively, a subtle gesture that bolstered her resolve. He understood this was the heart of the matter. "I know some might dismiss this as just another complaint, another employee looking for a handout," she pressed on, meeting the curious gaze of her colleagues behind her. "But we are not asking for charity. We are demanding acknowledgement of our value, a shift that could redefine how this diner operates. Stories of exhaustion and underappreciation will only remain in the shadows if we let them. The murmurs among managers grew hesitant. They were beginning to grasp the weight of her words. Sarah seized this gap, her moment to interlink vulnerability and strength. She recalled the faces behind her, tired yet hopeful, painstakingly working through the chaos that often pervaded their day-to-day lives. Would they realize the potential for true change lay not just in policies but in the very fabric of the workplace culture? Suddenly, Alex leaned forward, his hands clasped together as if preparing to speak from a place deep within. This diner is built on the hard work of those who are often overlooked. Management must remember, decisions made in these walls extend beyond just numbers on a balance sheet. His resolve ignited new energy. Sarah felt it brushing against her skin, electric. A quiet agreement began to permeate as management exchanged knowing glances, a spark of understanding flickering to life. Could they go beyond mere acknowledgement and into the territory of actionable change? Alex's presence began to reshape the atmosphere, turning it from confrontation to collaboration. Sarah could feel the swell of hope buoying within her. Each second that ticked by added fuel to her dreams, transforming anxieties into ambitions, yet, in the back of her mind, questions loomed. Would they genuinely consider her words and the plea for change, or was this all just theater? As she glanced at Alex once more, his eyes locked onto hers, she sensed an internal battle within him as well. A challenge lay ahead, testing not just her courage but also their collective ability to challenge the status quo. The moment was heavy with potential and uncertainty, the echoes of Sarah's statement hanging in the air. For a fleeting second, the prospect of hope felt tangible, but the road remained fraught with dangers yet unknown. Change can only happen if we, Alex began to say, but he was abruptly interrupted by the sharp tone of the senior manager. Let's make one thing clear, this is going to require a lot of deliberation. Sarah's heart sank momentarily. She braced herself, knowing that no matter the decision made today, her journey toward growth and assertiveness had only just begun. As the meeting continued, Sarah felt a determination blossom within her, a fierce ember refusing to be extinguished. The question remained, could she rally not just her co-workers but also the management around a shared vision for the diner? With newfound clarity, she was resolute. But she couldn't ignore the stirring inside her, a realization that the graph of courage curved upward, but the trench of doubt still ran deep. And so, as her thoughts spiraled between hope and apprehension, she wondered about the implications of their decisions. Would they seize this moment, or would it slip through their fingers in the end? Was she strong enough to lead the charge towards a better future? The question lingered in her mind as the discussions advanced, leaving Sarah some resolve but more questions than answers. The meeting was just the beginning, yet no one could know how far this would take her, whether towards triumph or turmoil. But one thing was for certain, the real confrontation had yet to come, and now more than ever, she was ready to face it head-on. Sarah held her breath as the meeting dragged on. The atmosphere shifted from hopeful to tense when the senior manager's dismissive tone sliced through the air. It was a stark reminder of the uphill battle she was still facing. Would they still consider her thoughts valuable amid their reluctance to entertain change? Thoughts raced through her mind. What if everything she had said had fallen on deaf ears? Doubt surged like a wave, threatening to drown her spirit. But there was something else stirring within her, a fiercely protective urge for those she represented. The feeling crystallized into a palpable determination. She couldn't allow their struggle to drown in silence. Let us be clear, before we deliberate any further, Sarah spoke up, her voice calm yet pointed. Change isn't negotiable, it's necessary. It's required more than ever. A workplace thrives on the passion of its employees, and right now, that passion is being crushed beneath complacency. She locked eyes with Alex, who seemed to shine as a beacon of support. His steady gaze steadied her resolve, grounding her amidst the chaos of emotions swaying inside her. They wouldn't endure this descent any longer. This wasn't just about them, it was for every individual who had ever given their all without recognition or respect. The murmurs began again, but this time, it was different. They weren't merely indecisive whispers, they expressed consensus, a collective nod that perhaps they had overlooked something crucial. Sarah pressed on, knowing this was her moment to not just be seen, but to stand firm. The responsibility felt heavy, almost overpowering, but it was paired with an exhilarating rush of possibility. I don't want you to consider what I'm asking as just another issue brought before you. Think of it as an opportunity to redefine our collaboration. Imagine a diner where employees feel valued, a place where morale isn't just a fleeting notion but a foundational element. Her heart thundered in her chest as she noticed the shifting dynamics in the room. For the first time, she sensed glimmers of empathy in the management team's eyes, inching away from indifference. But would it be enough to turn the tide? With that thought, panic clawed back in, whispering doubts about her worthiness to catalyze a change this significant. What if she stumbled? What if she faltered? With every instinct screaming at her to withdraw, she reminded herself of the courage it required to unveil this truth. The senior manager hesitated, glancing at his peers before finally responding, "You make a compelling case, Sarah. But convincing the others might not be as easy as you think. There are deeper issues at play here." "That's why I need your support," Sarah declared. "All I ask is for an open dialogue moving forward. If we can establish mutual respect, we can address those issues together. You may never have experienced what it feels like to overlook someone's contribution, but there's still time to change the narrative. We're ready for it." As she concluded her statement, silence enveloped the room once more. It felt electrifyingly precarious, like standing on a precipice where she could either be catapulted forward or topple back. The realities of what she had just done sunk in. She refused to back down even if it meant exposing her vulnerabilities to her superiors. In that moment of vulnerability, she realized something profound: it was okay not to have all the answers. The journey of growth was not about perfection, it was about progress, about forging a clearer path from one conversation to the next. Her thoughts danced across her awareness. She was becoming someone who championed change. Alex stood, breaking the silence, his voice echoing her earlier sentiments. "We're in this together, Sarah. You've put us on a precipice of opportunity. It's time to stop avoiding difficult conversations." The managers exchanged glances, uncertainty still evident, but their expressions were beginning to shift. A spark of potential rippled through the room, igniting something deeper. But Sarah knew that agreement was just the beginning. The real test loomed ahead. How could they navigate the currents of doubt that still lingered? What responses would come next from a management that thrived on tradition? As these thoughts spiraled in her mind, one question remained prominent: what would it take to truly change the narrative and foster a work culture that inspired rather than discouraged? With the weight of responsibility now firmly placed upon her shoulders, Sarah steeled herself for the critical discussions that surely awaited. The road ahead loomed dark and uncertain, but she felt an unexpected surge of anticipation brewing within. The confrontation with adversity was just beginning, and Sarah was ready to face whatever lay beneath the surface. A new resolve sparked as she prepared herself for the unfolding chapters of this challenging journey. As the meeting came to an end, the lingering uncertainty hung like thick fog. Sarah felt an inexplicable mix of accomplishment and anxiety coursing through her veins. The gravity of her words had shifted the dynamics, but she knew that to sustain momentum, she needed to take decisive action in the days that followed. How often had she seen initial excitement wane into complacency? Determined to avoid that trap, she resolved to follow up her courageous stance with actionable strategies. The next morning, Sarah awoke earlier than usual, her mind buzzing with ideas. The first task was clear: she needed to draft a proposal detailing her vision for transforming workplace culture. It would be a challenging endeavor, piecing together her thoughts into a cohesive plan that could withstand scrutiny. As she sat with her laptop, the morning sunlight streaming through her kitchen window, her fingers hesitated above the keyboard. The self-doubt she had briefly pushed aside surged back as she questioned her capabilities. What if her ideas were rejected? Would others see her as a mere waitress with a vision too grand for her station? Latching on to that fear would be easy, yet she knew that the promises she made during the meeting weren't just for herself. They echoed a deeper longing for respect and recognition that others needed just as much as she did. Taking a deep breath, Sarah zeroed in on the core intention behind her ideas. Each paragraph she typed emerged from a place of authenticity, her voice unapologetically personal, yet grounded in the collective experiences of her coworkers. The proposal wasn't only about changing policies, it was about shifting the heart of the workplace, where resentment and silence lay heavily wrapped around the vibrant potential of her team. After several hours of focused work, Sarah leaned back, surveying the document that lay before her. It was more than a simple proposal, it transformed into a manifesto of change. It called for regular feedback sessions, systems for acknowledging employee contributions, and, most importantly, a commitment from management to listen without defensiveness. As she read through her words again, satisfaction bloomed within her, perhaps even pride. But even in her triumph, a question loomed large: would the management truly engage with her ideas? As she prepared to present the proposal, the stakes couldn't feel higher. This was an opportunity to carve out a space for dialogue, but it was equally a moment of vulnerability. Standing firm could expose her to rejection. In the days leading up to the next meeting, Sarah's resolve solidified. She practiced her presentation, visualizing each scenario and response. As she rehearsed, she encountered various forms of resistance in her mind, ranging from patronizing dismissals to the chilling silence of indifference. Each imagined confrontation sparked a fire of determination within her. She realized she needed to prepare not only for acceptance but for confrontation. The night before the meeting, Sarah resisted the familiar urge to give in to anxiety. Instead, she embraced the discomfort. She recorded her thoughts in her journal, acknowledging her fears while positioning them as motivation. They became not anchors weighing her down, but winds steering her towards her goals. The act of putting pen to paper grounded her, helping strip away the facade of doubt. As she nestled into bed, Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Tomorrow would be a pivotal moment, a nexus between her aspirations and the realities of her professional world. She envisioned herself standing in front of her colleagues, articulating not only her ideas but her passion for a better workplace. What would happen when she laid all her considerations and proposals bare? How would her superiors respond? The time had come to face not only the management physically but the deeper implications of her message, her very worth in that space. Would she emerge as a champion for change, or would doubt swallow her resolve whole? With these tension-filled questions swirling in her mind, Sarah drifted into an anxious sleep, both apprehensive and eager for what lay ahead. The morning sun streamed through the diner windows as Sarah approached her coworkers, determination coursing through her veins. Today was the day. She had meticulously prepared her proposal, poised to present it to management, keeping in mind the power of unity that her colleagues had fostered together. They had come too far to falter now. As she gathered her coworkers in a small booth before the meeting, she felt the energy shift in the room. The lingering excitement from their letter and recent discussions surged forth in shared anticipation. "We have a real chance to redefine our space," she began, looking into the faces of her fellow waitstaff, each unique, yet bound by the same struggles. "I want us all to remember why we're here today. It's not just about policies or procedures, it's about restoring the respect and acknowledgement we deserve as workers. Each of our stories matters." Sarah felt her confidence building as she recounted their individual experiences, emphasizing the importance of standing together. The thought of returning to mere survival fueled her conviction. Once the meeting commenced, Sarah entered the room with purpose. She could feel the collective hope echoing within her. Her heart raced, but this time it was not fear guiding her steps, it was the unwavering resolve born from her journey of self-discovery. Standing in front of management, she took a steadying breath and began to present her proposal. As she spoke, each word carried weight. She articulated the need for regular feedback sessions, opportunities for acknowledgement, and a strengthening of communication channels. The words flowed naturally, infused with the optimism that had blossomed through her advocacy. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a testament to her growth and belief in her capabilities. To her surprise, management didn't frown or dismiss her. Instead, she noted a shift in their demeanor. They were listening, truly listening. Each nod and inquisitive glance illustrated a shift towards engagement instead of resistance. In that moment, Sarah felt transformed from a broken-hand waitress to a force for change, leading the charge for improvement. By prioritizing our well-being, Sarah emphasized, we can cultivate an environment that not only boosts morale but enhances productivity. Each one of us can contribute if we feel valued and respected. She witnessed a few management members exchanging glances, visibly considering her points. When she concluded, the silence was charged with anticipation. The moment felt monumental, the air was thick with potential. Finally, Alex broke the silence, reinforcing her message. I've had the privilege of witnessing Sarah's evolution during this process, and I can assure you, embracing these changes could redefine our work culture. Major companies fail to realize the impact of their current environments until it's too late. Let us not wait to act. The key moment arrived as the senior manager looked around the room, scanning faces that could resonate with their words. Your proposals are compelling, and I see the merit in pursuing these discussions further. We need to engage with you more meaningfully. There was a clarity in their voices. Today, the tide had shifted. Walking out of that meeting, Sarah felt a profound sense of achievement envelop her, a solid confidence that had been forged through myriad challenges. Not only had she learned to assert herself, but she also validated the strength that lay within her. This was no longer the timid waitress battling doubt, she had established herself as a recognized advocate. The diner, once filled with the weight of uncertainty, now hummed with a sense of possibility. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah witnessed tangible changes taking place. Feedback sessions became a regular occurrence, management actively engaged with employees, and shifts began to reflect fairness and respect. The once crumbling foundations of their workplace started to regain form as the staff celebrated newfound camaraderie. On the day of the diner's relaunch, Sarah stood proudly among her colleagues, not just as a waitress but as an integral component of a vibrant culture that valued hard work and creativity. The word team no longer felt superficial, it echoed as a promise fulfilled through their journey. With her head held high, Sarah realized that change was not merely about the external environment, it had begun within her, the hidden strength that had dared to rise amidst the turmoil. She had transformed her vulnerability into a robust asset that not only liberated her but empowered those around her. As she poured coffee that day, each cup became a symbol of shared purpose. And with it, she accomplished far more than she had ever presumed possible. She converted her struggles into a narrative of resilience, ensuring the diner remained a home not just for customers, but for every worker who believed in their worth. This is the moment you need to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss more exclusive emotional stories that inspire personal growth. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these powerful journeys. Comment below your thoughts and reactions about Sarah's incredible transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Spread the inspiration and be part of promoting these powerful narratives. Don't wait even one more second, join the movement towards personal overcoming stories.